Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Living Life Naturally. And today I have Marta Stanczyk with me. She is a self-awareness expert certified in applied counseling, and as a master empowerment coach, she is also a belief clearing and EFT practitioner, personality assessment evaluator, speaker, best-selling author, and founder of woman-to-woman empowerment. So combining her extensive training, professional and personal development, as well as intuitive insight, Marta helps women remember their essence so they can live in harmony with who they are and embody their unique purpose. She helps women transform their personal and professional lives through the power and understanding of their self-definition. Marta's clients embark on a deeply transformative journey as she evokes their courage to use their individual gifts and talents as part of their authentic self-expression. She connects with her clients on a deeply profound level and views the opportunity as a sacred privilege. Marta affectionately refers to her life's challenging experiences as earning a PhD from the School of Life. She continues to learn more, indulging her curiosity and deep desire to understand the complexity and beauty of human behavior, including her own. As her inner light shines brightly, Marta hopes to be the sparkle that ignites or expands the light in those who come to know her. So welcome to the podcast, Marta. We're
Thank you
very
so
excited.
much.
So Marta's unique. She lives in Canada, but tell us where you're from.
So originally I'm from Poland. And when I was a very young, curious woman, I immigrated to Greece. I actually didn't realize I immigrated. I thought I went for a short trip, not extending beyond 6 months, but that changed. Once I arrived there, I found out of new possibilities, and immigrating to Canada became that possibility. So then I arrived here several years ago now. Yeah.
So as Europeans, we were just chatting before we got on about how different our life is in these different parts of the world. And behind her, Marta has what I call a real lavender flower. Here in Florida, our lavender looks so different to that, and this reminds me of home. So Thank you for that nostalgia. So
you're welcome.
Tell us a little about how you got into this kind of work.
Well, I was invited to do this kind of work by life. I had no intention of becoming a coach or a counselor. I came here, learned what was necessary for me to support myself, and I liked office work, so I went that way, educated myself extensively in that area, became a certified CPA, which is Canadian Payroll Association professional. I studied accounting. I loved numbers. And it's very interesting because when I was growing up, I didn't love math, which, all of it ties into later discovering beliefs and perceptions and self-definitions. But once I came here, like I said, I went along that road, and I was working as a payroll professional, and I was very happy. My aspiration was to work for the government eventually and do payroll and be a civil servant, So, and then things happened, and it culminated in a very minor car accident, which caused a major injury. And as I say, at that point, I realized that everything that's happened because of that accident, and how I was treated by certain agencies, let's say, all of my beliefs, how I defined myself, not even realizing, came to surface. And I was basically forced to look at them carefully. And I took it upon myself to study what I believed, why I believed it. And because of the help I received through coaching and that kind of support, I then fell in love with it. And I thought, okay, this is something I would love to do. And from then on, I took about 2 to 3 years studying spirituality, of which I had no clue before. I was raised Roman Catholic, as most Polish people are, or were at the time. And so, yeah, it's just the horizons of my perspectives and beliefs have been broadened, isn't even the word. I would say they were exploded. So it was a very profound experience and many years of inquiry and study and just satisfying my curiosity. I don't think that's actually ever going to happen. But yes, I've learned a lot, and I would never want to do anything else.
That's awesome. So
Mm-hmm.
in your paragraphs that you had sent me about what you do, you help, for one thing, you help people clear out beliefs. So do you find that the majority of people that you deal with have underlying beliefs that are not true and not lined up in alignment with who they really are?
Most definitely. And I have heard about limiting beliefs, and you read books, all of us come to what we know through different avenues. But once I was able to actually examine my own life, that's where I basically, not that I stopped reading, because again, that's probably never going to happen either, but that's where I stopped needing outside conviction as to how powerful the beliefs we hold we are, and how very often they are way off base and far removed from the authentic self of who we actually are meant to be.
And so how do you help people clear those limiting beliefs? Do you do it mostly as an EFT practitioner, or are there other ways that you help people clear those limiting beliefs?
So I use the power of self-awareness. So I help women see what they may not be able to see, meaning our beliefs are basically evident in our environment. So usually when we look at the behaviors that we repeat that we wish we didn't, that's where all our beliefs are hidden. And that's how we can expose them, by looking at what we do versus what we know and what we want to do. And when they don't jive, when there is a discrepancy, then that's clear evidence to me that there is something to be looked at. And then we dive deeply, through coaching. I also actually prepared a little a gift for your audience, a belief discovery method, which is a simple 5-step process where I invite you to go through the process, and then that might help you begin to realize whether or not there is something hidden in your mind that you're not seeing. And often it's so helpful to write things down, because we don't really know what we believe until we take the time to find out. And we need to take our beliefs out of our mind in order to see what they are. And a way to do that is to either write, which is journaling, or the little process I have prepared, just an example, or through speaking. I'm sure you and many of your listeners would have had an experience when they said something and they were surprised that they said it. It's like, oh, did I just say that? And it's in speaking that we realize what we're thinking oftentimes as well.
Oh, that's interesting. I had never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
So you also talk to people about understanding and going through a transformative journey to understanding their self-definition. So explain to us actually what the self-definition portion is.
So as we grow up in our formative years, we basically create a definition of who we are, what the world is like, and how we fit into it, and how to behave in it. And so, because, when we're born, we're like a clean slate. We don't know anything other than we're hungry and the diaper is wet. From there, our awareness awakens and our brain grows, and then we take cues from our environment as to where we are and why we're here. And then as we grow up, we hear things, we see things, we experience things or don't experience things. And that informs us about who we are and how we fit into the world and what we deserve or what we lack. So for one example, say you're a little girl and you want to help your mommy do something in the kitchen, but she is rushing, so she doesn't have time to slow down and allow you to help her. Because as we all know, that can slow us down, right? Because you have to explain and show and wait and all that and answer a truckload of questions along the way. So the mommy says something along the line, oh, I don't have time, you're not fast enough, for example. So a young mind can say, I'm not good enough to do this. And once we begin such a belief, then our brains are designed to look for things in our environment to confirm that we are right. It's called the confirmation bias. So then anything else similar like that happens where your teacher says you did your homework wrong and you felt bad about it, your assumption, initially it's an assumption, but when you repeat the assumption long enough, it becomes a belief. And then we filter our experiences through that. And so we take cues from, like the self-definition itself has different components as to the contribution channels, if you will, because, you take cues from your mom or whoever is bringing you up. You take cues from your environment, from your neighborhood. If I live in this neighborhood, what does it mean about me? If I come from this country, what does that mean about me? And I never realized it until I was, again, working on my own self and all the things I believed about myself. And actually being Polish had an impact. So that's when I realized it has to be true for other people as well. So all those little components contribute to how we define ourselves. I can give you another example from my own life. When my dad died, I was 5 years old. And for some reason, in my culture, they referred to me as a half orphan. And again, it took me decades to realize this, but what my young mind took that to mean is that I'm half as smart, half as valuable. Everything was half. And this is just an example. And so then as you move along your life's journey, you look for instances to show you that you're right. And I was right until I realized that the definition I gave myself basically was not accurate. And what that meant, the half orphan label didn't mean all the things I thought it meant. It simply meant I had just one parent. One of them died. So this is why it's so important to really look at what we've heard in childhood about ourselves and our environment. And I also, when I work with women, a lot of people have close ties into defining themselves because of who their parent is or who their grandmother is. That can also be quite impactful on one's definition of who they are, because you come from that person, if it's a mom or a dad. A lot of people who grew up in dysfunctional homes where there was alcohol abuse or drug abuse have quite substantial wrinkles, if you will, in their self-definition. And it's so important to discover them and uncover them so that you can basically measure it for truth. And if it truly means whatever you thought it meant about you. So it's work that's not always easy, but it's definitely worth it, because nobody wants to live a lie, and we all deserve to live, lives that reflect truly who we are on the inside, not who we think we are.
Right. So how, when you're working with people, do you even have them begin to uncover those layers so that they realize that their belief system is off, if that makes sense?
Absolutely. So, well, first you look at whatever someone feels is a problem in their life that they would like to address. And then, it's different for every individual. The conversation can go, one person can come to the core within a session or two. Other people are so guarded that it takes them a little longer. But basically, it's looking at what doesn't work and considering what surrounds that. And, it's difficult to say because it's in a conversation that I am led as a coach from word and a statement. And perhaps someone says something declarative about themselves, and then we question that on the spot. So, but that's basically how it's always in the environment. It's always in the words we speak. It's hidden there, but it does take an observer to really see. And believe me, I've had my own share of observers, because even though I feel I have a gift at just having the tenacity to look at myself, I still needed, confirmation, and I still needed someone to point certain things out to me, which is very helpful. So, yeah, it's always in an environment.
Yeah, okay. So that's kind of different. So I'm thinking about you and I from Europe is a totally different environment to how people live in the States or in Canada. And I know for me, there was a huge adjustment and kind of, in a way, trying to change myself so that people didn't, I don't know if that makes sense, so people didn't misunderstand me. And because of that, I've kind of lost part of myself.
I can totally relate.
Yes. And so now I'm in the process of trying to get back to who I feel I really am, because I tried to play a different role. And I think so many women to please their husbands or their kids or whoever, try to play a role. And so therefore, is it a role that we were taught to model, or is it something that, I'm sure it's both, that sometimes we just begin that ourselves and really lose sight of who we truly are?
So it's important for our survival to fit in. So this goes back to the lizard brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important for us, because if we don't fit in, and this goes by, like, this is nature, this is animal kingdom. If you don't fit in, you're going to be tossed out. You're not going to survive as a little baby, right? So you have to fit in. You have to please your parents, because if we don't please our parents, then we're going to be hungry, naked, whatever, unprotected. So that's like an inner internal instinct. But what happens is, as you just mentioned, that's okay in childhood because it does make sense, but it's so ingrained in our behavior, and we are so unaware of it, that we bring that behavior to our adulthood lives, and we do things we don't want to do to please the boss, do things we don't want to do to please a spouse or even a child. And in doing that, we are betraying ourselves. And pardon me, when we betray ourselves, I know from my own experience, there's a very funny thing that happens inside of ourselves, that if you already had the belief, and most of us do for one reason or another, that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve something the way other people do. When you betray yourself, you literally pile onto all those beliefs. Because I feel that one of the most important things we have to have for ourselves as women and humans is self-respect. And if you do things that go against what you value the most, you will not respect yourself. And so playing a role, pretending, somewhere you know you are. And so you want to, that's what what authenticity is all about. It's knowing your values and then living up to your own values and your own expectations.
So how do you help women then to change their pathways once you've uncovered it and they've got this self-awareness? How then do you help them to get back into that place of integrity and self-respect and self-love?
The easy thing is that every one of us has that desire. So we have the desire to be true to who we are. And once one realizes that they are a little bit off, or a lot of it, it depends, we want to be who we are. This is why the word authenticity is everywhere now. And sometimes I see women perhaps misunderstand it a little bit. And I've seen instances where, people are, oh, I'm authentic and I'm just going to say it because it's authentic. Well, sometimes authenticity is misconstrued and comes out as lashing out or, talking somebody down, because just because we believe something doesn't mean we have to throw it at people, I'll say. It's okay to believe something, but allow others the space to be who they are. So I always refer to the way I work is to meet the client where they are at, because if I'm speaking to you a language you don't understand, what's the point?
Right.
So even if, like, sometimes we hear, things like only surround yourself with people who think like you and, positivity all the time. Well, sure, but there's also a place to allow someone once again to be who they are, understand them in their own space, accept them as they are in their own space. And that then allows them an opportunity to know that they are accepted, they are okay, and perhaps they can listen to you and what you have to say because they feel safe with you.
Mm.
But if you poo-poo on their ideas, and if you bring them down or criticize them harshly, no one's going to open up to you, and no one's going to even consider showing their authentic self to you, because whatever they're pretending to be isn't even that isn't even good enough for you. So how would they even allow themselves to be vulnerable? And oftentimes, again, we don't know ourselves, our authenticity, because it's all hidden under that, self-definition and those beliefs that we have constructed about ourselves.
And do you have a favorite story or, a client story where they've had the most exciting transformation, or even if it's not a huge thing? Do you have a favorite story?
I think it's probably best to tell my own story. And because I think, I deeply believe that all our experiences begin with us.
True.
We are the common denominator. So this is why I believe it's important for all of us to understand ourselves, because to really love yourself and to really respect yourself, when you do that, you can't help but be that way for other people. So when I realized that my half self was a full self, my life truly changed. Like, it changed completely. And I actually now know what it's like to self-love. And you can't self-love. You can't love yourself if you don't like yourself.
Mm.
And if you tell yourself, oh, I'm going to do some self-love exercises or self-love this or self-love that, but in the back of your head, you're going, my teeth are crooked. My ass is too big. My this, my that. There's no way you can love yourself. There's no way you can love yourself when you not so secretly berate yourself. So when I finally came to a place where I don't berate myself, when it's okay to make a mistake, it's so okay. As you know, and most of your listeners probably know, the best way to learn is through making mistakes. If you take the wrong turn once, you won't do it again, hopefully. And if you do, well, that's okay too. But that is my most happy event, is where I finally came to a place where I'm okay with who I am. I'm like so okay with who I am. And if I could sell that in a vial somehow, I would so do it. I would even give it away, because it's truly the most extraordinary feeling. So that is my favorite story, is of my own realization that I'm a whole human being.
That really is incredible, because so many of us as women do not feel like that. And so that's really awesome. And I think, especially as we talk about women going through a midlife transition, there is so much that they're going through that, just to be able to accept themselves as who they are, where they are, and respect and love themselves would be.
It's interesting that you mentioned that part, because even that part was such a difficult journey for me. I hope it's okay to say that when I got my first period, somehow what was communicated to me caused a lot of shame. And I'm certain that I wasn't the only one. And I suffered physically quite a bit. And it wasn't until fairly recently that I spoke to a good friend of mine who had the same extremely painful experiences because of their menstruation. So even that, which makes us a woman, we hide, we are ashamed of it, and we don't talk about it because we find it, well, it's a flaw. And if we really want to go deeper, I also believe that all of our, or I think it's all, but maybe I don't know everything. I could be wrong about some stuff. But I believe that all of our ailments are caused by emotional imbalance. And also there's obviously some environmental toxins and stuff, but you know, a lot of our illnesses are caused by emotional imbalance. And that's another avenue I was very happy to discover in my teaching and learning and all the energy and chakras and stuff. I'm so interested in learning more about that. But because I was so unsafe, I felt so unsafe in the world. That's the first chakra. And that's where I had my back problems. Then there was the worthiness and the shame because of the woman part, which is your second chakra, which is where your ovaries are, which is where all the pain was. And I could continue, but my main health issues are so deeply and closely connected to my beliefs. And it's extraordinary. It was extraordinary for me to connect the dots with that. So it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, it is. I had a similar experience. It's very eye-opening. Yeah. So do you have any last tips that you'd care to give our listeners? Anything that maybe if there was one thing that they could do, what would be your best tip that you could give them?
The simplest thing that a person can do is to look at themselves in the mirror. Just if it's, I know it's difficult for some women at the beginning to say nice things to yourself. And if that's the case, that's okay. But you can begin with just looking into your own eyes. And if nothing else, wish yourself a good day. And if you're able to do more, tell yourself you like yourself. Tell yourself you're okay. And another huge part is self-forgiveness. We believe there is so much we have to forgive ourselves for. Where the truth falls on that, you know, it's up to every individual to decide. But no matter where that falls, it's time we've forgiven ourselves for whatever misgivings, whatever that we've done or haven't done. That's huge. If you don't forgive yourself, you will never respect yourself. And you don't respect yourself, you won't like yourself and you won't love yourself.
So where can people find you?
So I'm on Facebook, Woman to Woman Empowerment. I'm also on Instagram, the Marta Stanczyk. I'm on Twitter. I have my website. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm kind of everywhere a little bit.
Okay, well, I will put all of that in our show notes so that people can connect with you. And I think this was really Super. I appreciate you being on here with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, great chat. And to everyone out there, I will make sure that you can connect with Marta. And it's been a real pleasure to have you on here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks.